conference in a matter of weeks. It's a gathering of global leaders, and of course they're all focused on the growing evidence that our planet is heating, with extreme weather events now regularly happening around the world. And now scientists at University College London say that to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, there must be an end to burning fossil fuels. They say nearly 60% of global oil and gas reserves and 90% of coal must remain in the ground. Well, let's speak to Tzeporah Berman, who chairs the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty Initiative, which is a global campaign to achieve just these kind of goals. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. In practical terms, how's this going to work, given that the world is built on systems that use these fuels at the moment?
Well, the report shows us that we cannot extract the vast majority of coal, oil, and gas from existing mines, let alone build new projects. That means no new oil drilling, fracking, coal plants, or mines, and that's not to mention the idea of opening new fields or projects. It means that countries like Canada cannot expand fracking and oil sands pipelines. The UK cannot claim to be a climate leader in the run-up to Glasgow while approving new projects like Cambo or Norway expanded oil drilling. And to be clear, the report actually uses quite risky assumptions about how much climate change we want to live through. And so, if anything, we need quicker action and more aggressive timeline for the wind down of fossil fuels. But I understand the practicalities of stopping this kind of extraction from the ground. Governments can just choose not to do it. I suppose what I'm trying to ask is that the way our world works relies on energy, which often comes from fossil fuels. So what's your suggestion if that were to radically reduce, that our energy consumption has to also radically reduce because we don't have the technology to replace it yet? But the fact is that we already have enough fossil fuels under production and in the system, more than enough to meet the needs of the world while we transition to renewable energy and electrification. And we actually do have the technology today to replace most of the uses of fossil fuels. And I think one of the main problems is that every country and every company thinks that their project is going to fit. But no new projects fit if we're going to save people's lives and ensure safety. And we're already experiencing unprecedented heat waves and massive fires and floods. But if we are going to do this, it's not just about people changing their lives and what they buy. It's about governments acting now. We're going to need international attention and global cooperation, and that's why the Paris Accord is not enough.
Tzeporah, why is it then, if you say the technology will be in place when we need it and that we have sufficient fossil fuels for the immediate term, why is it that more governments are not persuaded of what you're suggesting and what this study is suggesting?
Well, in fact, all of our governments signed off on the recent Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report that said the same thing as this report today in Nature. And so our governments agree that it needs to happen. But we don't have a system for negotiations on how do we wind down fossil fuel production. And that's why a growing number of leaders from around the world, including 101 Nobel laureates, almost 2,000 scientists, are calling for a fossil fuel treaty to negotiate the wind down of fossil fuel production, because every country wants to remain competitive. And so it's a kind of chicken and egg game right now of who will stop first.
And as you imagine it, how would a treaty, an international treaty of that nature, look after developing countries whose economies are reliant to a great degree on fossil fuels?
What we need right now we need the wealthy countries to act first. That much is clear. And in order to ensure this global transition. And we need those negotiations around the wind down of fossil fuels to address critical issues like debt forgiveness. There are many countries in the global south currently pursuing new fossil fuel productions just to feed their debt. And so we can't allow markets just to decide what fossil fuel projects are going to be produced. We actually need the countries to negotiate the wind down, because we need all countries to stop expansion now. And we do have the technologies to make sure that that happens.
Tzeporah Berman, thank you very much for speaking to us. Let's stay in touch as COP26 approaches.
Thank you.